Hello, thanks for tuning in. My name is Zach. This channel is usually a booktube channel for science fiction and fantasy book reviews and thoughts and talking about all things books. But it is Oscar season, and this week I really didn't do a whole lot of reading, or at least not make much progress as far as finishing. So I'm going to talk briefly about what I am currently reading, and then it's all movies. There's like six to talk about. So to get started and to jump right in, we will move over here and leave space for what I am currently reading. So I did pause Malazan book 4. I am on House of Chains, but I have two Libby holds this week, so I am trying to get through them. They have about 2 weeks left. Currently, what I am reading is The Coming Wave by Mustafa Suleyman. This is a buddy read that we're doing over on our podcast with my NYU classmate, Patricia. We are reading and talking tech on that podcast. And so we're reading this book. It's pretty interesting so far. I'm a little over 60% done. Really enjoying it as a break from the science fiction and fantasy. It's a business book, but it's more about culture. It's talking about the coming wave, as the title says, and it's really about the implications of AI. So it is about AI, but it's also about biology, interesting enough, because Suleyman, the author, was the founder of, or the co-founder of DeepMind, and they did AlphaGo, which is that AI program that beat a Go master in a human Go master using AI. And then AlphaGo progressed into AlphaFold, a program, AI backed program using kind of the same deep learning techniques that is now doing biology and research in that area. So, where the book seems to be going, and you talked about earlier, is connecting the advancements that AI companies are using and doing, the implications of that, and how that crossover effect could affect biological sort of implications, healthcare, viruses, protein discovery, a bunch of really interesting things, and just how all this affects society and talking about society, general implications of all this. So it's very heady. I'm still wrapping my head around it, but that's what I'm currently reading. So two books, one on hold, one in the active, almost done, because it's a really easy read, but a lot of ideas I need to organize about. But then yes, to jump into movie, this is what we're talking about. This is the crux of this episode slash weekly update. It's almost Oscar season, so it is the second week in February. It's February 9th that that's recording. That's why I'm coming straight from work, usually a little more chill later, but I'm doing this right after work because we watch a ton of movies. So we tried to get through some of the Oscar contenders, and that's where we started this week. We started with Hamnet from 2025, Chloe Zhao movie. It is blew me away. It was actually really good. It's about 2 hours long. So all these Oscar contenders are so long, but I really, really enjoyed the story. So it is out on streaming this week. Was the retelling or an alternate telling? I'm not really sure of the structure, but it's based on books. That is a booktube connection about the story of Hamlet in Hamlet's twin sister. So it's an interesting story about William Shakespeare's life, kind of pre-fame. And this is a shame on me. I didn't realize it was actually about William Shakespeare as I was watching it. I sort of went to it with zero expectations, zero knowledge, other than it was somehow connected to Hamlet. But Hamnet is about William Shakespeare and is a really interesting look into life in that time of the world. So it's got the plague and there's this different world. I loved it. Growing up, I used to love that era of there's like the Middle Ages, but the Shakespeare kind of era. It's just cool. I really enjoyed everything about it. The characters felt very real. It was just different. I loved Agnes, the mother, the Shakespeare's wife. She was great. She starts as this outcast, has like this mystical quality where she's very connected to nature, and she has herbal healing. This is way in like not the Dark Ages, but in that Middle Ages Shakespeare time. So she's doing a lot of like herbal forest gathering healing. She has a very strong connection to nature, and then her trials and tribulations kind of on the home front, while Shakespeare is figuring out his own life that eventually leads to him becoming the bard, the playwright. So a very interesting character study of all the characters. I just love the dynamics of the kids to Shakespeare. I love how real it felt. It's really good. I can't say enough praises about it. I gave it 4.5 out of 5. So it wasn't like a perfect movie, but very cool visuals, very cool vibe. Love the sound design, love the characters, love the acting. I thought it was well done. Definitely a contender for Oscars. And then after that, or I at least, sort of palate cleanse myself with a rewatch, and that is 2003's Running on Karma. So this is the throwback from last week's. It is a Johnny Toe and Warkai-Fi collab, The Hermit. These two directors co-directed this one as well, so it has that signature style. It stars Andy Lau. I watched it way back when in college, so like 2000, so it's probably 20 years ago at least since the last time I saw Running on Karma, but I enjoyed it. It is also a more philosophical sort of, the duo of Toe and Walker-Fi is usually like romantic comedy, but this has Johnny Toe's kind of signature cops and robbers angle. But then it does get into like a bit mystical because Andy Lau's character is this bodybuilding monk, and it deals with karma and fate because Lau's character can see the karma of others, and he's sort of trying to figure out this murder mystery that's also kind of connecting the plot thread throughout the film. So that's a really gripping, driving story of everything just keeps moving the plot forward. Andy Lau's character, who, yes, sometimes a lot at that era in the early 2000s, he played a lot of romantic comedies, but he has he's philosophical, mystical, because he's this bodybuilding monk that can see things. It has a mystical quality to it. I loved his character. I thought it was really well done how he's sort of detached, but also related to this police case that's going on. So you have kind of the usual cast of characters in the film investigating this murder mystery, with Lau's character being sort of in the wrong place at the wrong time, but connected to the investigation that's going on. So really well done story. And then the very end, it turns very like out there, I think philosophical. So it has a really like a message it's trying to say. So I enjoyed it from that angle. That's a little more a thinking man's Hong Kong movie from the early 2000s, but really enjoyed Running on Karma. One of my top Johnny Toe movies. I enjoyed it. And then on Saturday, what I watched was I Saw the Devil. And this is a movie that was on like the list of recommended movies to check out for foreign cinema on Reddit, of course. And it is with your common actors that you know. Oh, geez, I'm going to click this while I'm recording because I'm just totally going to butcher the name from my list. It is Lee Byung-hun, the actor that we know from Squid Game, No Other Choice. So this is one of his movies, and that's sort of why it's on the Reddit radar, because Lee Byung-hun is well known here in America. But yes, he plays sort of as his normal character, which was surprising because it starts off with Lee's character more of a police inspector. I thought, oh, he's going to be the good guy this time. But sort of the twist of the plot is who's actually the devil in this story. It is the serial killer, or is it Lee's character who is getting revenge? So it's a revenge thriller. It is a a fast-paced thriller where you're on the edge of your seat the whole time. The plot is just driving. It is just nonstop, that set piece to set piece. But I loved his acting. Characters turn from this grieving husband to revenge obsessed character, which fits what we know or what we've seen of his later roles where he plays like the character in No Other Choice or Squid Game. Yeah, so I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a great ride if you're into a little gore and violence in your action thrillers. But that was I Saw the Devil from 2010, a rather old movie. And then for our Saturday night matinee feature, where we're looking at Oscar contenders, we watch Kokuho, which is the 2025 film out of Japan. It was Japan's submission for Best International Film, but it didn't make the short list of nominees. But it did get nominated for, I think, Best Hairstyle is the category that Kokuho was nominated for. And this is another kind of Oscar-heavy dramatic film because it has all the elements that you'd pick for like an Oscar winner. So it's about an art form. It's it's very similar to Farewell My Concubine, the movie about Chinese theatrical, but this is about kabuki, the Japanese theater play where males play female characters, just like Farewell My Concubine. But in this case, it does focus more on the characters. And that's why I like different, to not compare it too much to Farewell My Concubine, but you can't help it because it's two male characters as leads, following them over a series of decades in their theatrical careers. Whereas Farewell My Concubine framed the story more through the cultural impact of what was going on outside of the wider world. Here in Kokuho, it really focuses on just the two main characters and how kabuki in general is progressing, and their character specifically is progressing. You don't really see the impacts of the larger world, that even though we start, I think, in the 60s and we go all the way to, I think, 2014 was the final montage. So even though we're in this huge 50-year time frame, we don't really see the outside world, like none of the large events in the world during those 50 years really impact the characters. They're just working on their craft and living in their lives. So it's very interesting because the one main character, he is a son of the Yakuza. So he's a gangster son. That sets up the film where he's sort of an outsider already because he's a gangster son and he eventually gets the large back tattoo that always identifies him as a Yakuza. And then he joins this traditional art form of kabuki, and it turns out that yes, he is a sort of once in a generation talent for a kabuki onagata, a male playing a female. But then he gets adopted into the house of, or yes, the right way to say it, but just the house of one of the current like top performer in kabuki. But he has a son, and we learned that yes, kabuki is apparently a very patriarchal and family lineage based society. So whoever is currently in kabuki, their son sort of takes over their mantle. An outsider can't really break in. So that's the central conflict we see throughout this film. Whereas this outsider, Niba Yakuza, is trying to break in as an outsider into this very traditional art form and this the hierarchy. So it's a critique of all that baggage there with the culture and society and hierarchies and tradition and what does it mean to be an outsider. So I enjoyed it a lot as well. The kabuki plays that go on, they do sort of mirror the characters, so you'll see them perform a play and say lines, and that is sort of mirroring what's happening in the characters' lives. So I love that interplay between what is on the play and what is happening with the characters. I thought it was well done. It is very long as well. It's over 2 hours. So that's, I guess, my only critique is that they hopefully could have cut it down. But I think by giving the film more room to breathe and all these extra scenes of the actual plays, you really get a feeling for the kabuki art form in general as a whole. So that extra running time and breathing room really does enhance the atmosphere of the film. So I did like Kokuho, but I could see why maybe it wouldn't totally win over as a short list for the Oscar for Best International Film, because it is sort of similar to Farewell My Concubine, if it does take a different twist on that sort of formula, if you could say. And then for our lighthearted twist after that was Kowloon Generic Romance, the live action adaptation of the manga. And yes, I think it had anime as well last season or the season before. So I read the manga, so I was a little bit familiar with this. Not all the manga though. So I read some of the manga. So I was generally familiar with the setup of what's going on in Kowloon Generic Romance, but at least in the first couple volumes, it's still a mystery of kind of what is happening in the city of Kowloon. But in the movie, because again, you're condensing a long series into an hour and a half, they do give you sort of the spoiler of yes, there is definitely something weird happening in the city, that they've developed this technology for perfect copies of people's memories. So it gives you that all up front in the first sort of like 5 minutes of the film. So where that was a bit more of a slow burn in the manga, you're sort of left wondering why is it so odd? What are these discrepancies? Right up front in the live action, you're like, yeah, okay, there is definitely something going on. So the whole movie, obviously, you're looking for the discrepancies. You know that you kind of understand where this is going, or maybe that's because I had read some of the manga that, okay, I know something is up with the characters. Either the twist is going to be the male lead or the female lead. Something's going to happen to them that is related to the technology and the copies and the memory backups and the city as a whole. So we do get that, and we do get some character development. So I thought it was well done. It's the best they could have done to condense a long story with a slow burn romance and mystery into an hour and a half of film, live action. But I still enjoyed it because I thought the original manga was well done. I love that it was a manga, but set in Hong Kong, in Kowloon. So it has that like Japanese take on Chinese culture. And it's just fun seeing that in manga format because you don't really see a manga set in China because it's manga, it's usually in Japan. So I love that take. And as I've said on this channel, I love Hong Kong and the classic Hong Kong. And this is all about nostalgia for Hong Kong, for Kowloon, for the city. So I love the film here. It's just showing the alleys and the restaurants and the street food. It's just great. The characters were, again, I felt that their relationship was real. It was fun. And the mystery between the two interplay made sense until we got the sort of maybe rushed ending because it had to kind of wrap up a whole manga series and show the mystery and everything that was happening. So That was Kowloon Generic Romance, the live action manga or live action movie of the manga of the anime. And then Sunday, we were back in Oscar territory. So, yes, that is one Oscar movie every day. So, for day 3, for Sunday, we watched The Secret Agent. This is the actual Best Picture contender out of Brazil. So, this movie is also super long. It was 2 hours and a half, 2 hours, 40 minutes, super long. Oscar worthy for sure. I really enjoyed it, but I felt I did a disservice to the movie by not researching enough before I watched this. So this is a movie that required my full attention. I was locked in, even though, yes, it was dragging a bit towards the end. It is really long, but with the title and just with the synopsis that something about secret agent and turmoil in the Brazil in the 70s, I think it was, that I was assuming that the secret agent was our main character, Marcelo slash Armando, that he is a secret agent, but it turned out that that I guess really wasn't the case, or it sort of was because he talks to Elsa and he's trying to get his passport, but it's more, I think what I read after the fact is that it's more showing, not telling about the state of Brazil as a during that time as a whole. So it definitely shows, and I saw that and got that from the film on my first viewing about the corruption and what's happening between the government and the people and sort of the oppression and everything happening to the people in that time period in that city of Recife. So I definitely felt that, and the movie does a great job of making you feel these emotions and understanding with a show don't tell. If anything, maybe I needed a little bit of telling to kind of catch me up what was going on, but it sort of immerses you in this world. And that's kind of maybe the Oscar worthiness of the film, is that it does a great job of really making you feel like you are there with the characters, experiencing this very vivid period of time in this city in Brazil as we follow Marcelo as he goes on sort of these missions. But again, I wasn't clear that because he's a refugee, but not really a secret agent. So I think the title is maybe referring to just all of them being sort of working against the system, because we had like the old lady at the beginning, like all the characters are great. I love the story. I didn't quite get the connection at the end of the future to the past connection, how they're investigating the whole thing and how that really ties together, even though it just sort of wraps the movie up into telling the story, and that it puts a pin in it that we are learning about a period in time, maybe was the point of the future past connection and what was going on there. If you've seen it, you kind of know what I'm talking about. But anyways, I enjoyed it. It wasn't like a 5-star because again, I just got lost in sort of the plot and I couldn't really follow the motivations of the characters. So if there's any critique, is that while I enjoyed the setting, I couldn't really understand the character motivation to move from piece to piece at this time. I didn't really understand Marcelo's motivation other than he was just looking for the record of his mother, but it felt like he had more going on than just trying to get this record from the record agency that he was working at. So maybe I missed it. It was a long movie and I was trying to lock in and focus on everything that was happening and take in the scene. But cinematography, sound design, characters are all excellent, all Oscar worthy. It is worth your time. I think it's pretty long, but that was The Secret Agent, or I'm not going to try and butcher the Portuguese, like O Secreto. Anyways, The Secret Agent was great. And then lastly, before the Super Bowl, because yes, we had to at least turn on Super Bowl, we had to turn on the Olympics. It is an Olympic weekend. Our final movie of Sunday was watching throwback Hong Kong film, and that is 1992's Royal Tramp with Stephen Chow. This was just a fun watch. Had it sort of, I was watching it. My wife was just sort of half paying attention while she was doing her grading and teacher stuff that she had to catch up on. But I enjoyed it. It's a rewatch. I watched it, yeah, way back 20 years ago in college. Stephen Chow, all his normal cast of characters, he gets involved in this scheme in the palace, and he ends up working with the emperor and the emperor's sister and tied up in a whole mess with the cult. And it's not as slapstick funny as his later films. It came out in 92, so it's maybe a little bit early in Chow's career before he sort of developed an international style. So it was still lighthearted and fun, but not like his best or my favorite Chow film. But anyways, that was Royal Tramp. And then one last thing to talk about, one more movie. This is the super long movie episode last week. What I watched but didn't talk about last week was another Hong Kong film, which is 2002's My Left Eye Sees Ghosts. So this is the connection of why I watched Running on Karma later. So My Left Eye See Ghost is, to me, a classic. I loved it. It was one of my favorites. Rewatched, of course, but it is 2002. It is the duo of main star is Sammy Chang, the draw, but the actors, or not actors, the directors are also Johnny To and Wai Kai Fi, the hermit. So the director duo of To and I are here in a romantic comedy, and because I look at the name, Sean Lau is the male protagonist that plays off of Sammy Chang's characters. Sammy Chang, yes, I loved her character. She's great. She's one of the classic actresses that seemed to be in all the movies I watched in college because it was like a no-name actor. So when we were looking for Hong Kong movies to watch, it was, yeah, find like an Andy Lau movie or a Sammy Chang movie. And yes, those two are in movies together. I enjoyed her character. It is sort of a romantic comedy, but it gets a little bit actiony and a little bit dramatic toward the very end when you find the twist. But I loved it. I love that capsule of time of the late 90s, early 2000s that it shows here. Chang's character plays this like stuck up, well, actually not stuck up. She's like a grifter, gold digger character that eventually learns to love her ex husband that she marries for money, but then she sort of grows as a character as she comes to terms that she sort of gets this windfall when he dies, but then she can see ghosts, as the title implies. And yeah, she grows as a character, becomes more mature, and the twist at the end is a little heartfelt where she sort of realizes what was going on with Sean Lau's character. But anyways, that was a throwback from last week's movies of My Left Eye Sees Ghost. So that is what we watched. And I guess briefly, quickly, TV shows. This week we watched the final episode of Fallout Season 2. So that wrapped up this week, episode 8. So in general, to talk about Fallout, as the last wrap up, if you're still watching this, is I loved Fallout. I thought it was great. I have not played the games, but I really enjoyed the TV series. I think the set design and all the production that went to it is great. It looks great. It sounds great. The characters are great. That, okay, maybe Maximus is a little annoying, is his character but he does grow as a character, especially here in season 2. And by the end, the two main characters do finally link up at the end. We get some backstory of what is going on with the other force that's out there, not to be too spoilery, so you can watch it yourself. But it's Fallout. I feel a lot of people maybe have heard of it, but if you haven't, I thought the sort of twists and what happens to the characters was a great way to end the series, or to end the season of the series. And it does, of course, set up a next season after this, so I cannot wait. So please, Amazon Prime, please throw more money at Fallout. I had a great time at the entire season, so I thought it was great. But now we are, yes, looking for more TV to stream besides the anime we're watching. So if there is anything upcoming in the February, March, like on new series that are debuting, I'm looking forward to finding new series. But thanks for watching this extended look into what I've been watching, what I've been reading, which is very little, but what I've been watching, tons of great movies. I am looking forward to checking out a couple more movies next week. So I'm looking forward to that. Keep working through the Oscar list. But thanks for watching this talk about movies, this yap session, this after work yap session, still dressed in the quarter zip. My name is Zach. This is usually a booktube channel, so return for booktubes and check out the other videos that are probably book reviews and book-related stuff, fantasy, sci-fi. Thanks for watching. Have a great week, and talk to you later. Bye.